So there's a company that spent 2 years proving something almost everybody said was impossible. That you could train a serious AI model on graphics cards scattered all over the planet, strangers' hardware. And they pulled it off, twice. Then they turned around and trained their best model on 512 chips inside one building. And that's not a failure. That's the most interesting thing about them. Because somewhere in between, they found the real bottleneck. And finding it, built a $1 billion company in about 2 years. Real quick, we've got a Discord, and I genuinely want it to be yours. Early access, where these videos land before they go public, charts and data for the tokenomics research, daily announcements, hackathons, job openings, and one newsletter every Friday in the newsletter channel. Come grow and build with us. So let's start at the end of 2023, because that's when two people who had no business working together decided to. Vincent Weiser is the CEO, and he did not come out of an AI lab. He came out of decentralized science. He was a founding steward at Vita DAO, a crowd of strangers on the internet pooling money to fund longevity research. So his whole instinct, right, was get a lot of people to contribute a little, and something big happens. Then there's Johannes Hagemann, the CTO. He joined Aleph Alpha in early 2022, Germany's big foundation model company, to build a distributed training framework from scratch. So one of them believes in crowds, and the other one knows exactly how the plumbing breaks. And the problem was very specific. Training a frontier model normally means thousands of chips in one room, all talking to each other constantly, which means only the companies who can afford that room get to build one. So in April 2024, they raised $5.5 million in seed money. And here's the part I love, because the money is crypto money. Co-led by Distributed Global and Coin Fund, with Protocol Labs coming in through Juan Benet, the guy behind Filecoin. Weiser's line at the time was that, quote, decentralized AI is one of the highest impact opportunities in history. That July, they launch a compute exchange pulling GPUs from more than 10 cloud providers. And then they publish OpenDeloco. And this is the trick. Instead of every machine reporting in every single second, each one goes off and works alone for a few hundred steps, then mails in a summary. Communication drops by up to 500 times. It's a group project where everybody works separately all week and syncs on Friday. So by the end of November 2024, the first one is done. Intellect 1, 10 billion parameters, trained across scattered machines, and at the time, nothing that size had been trained that way. Then comes the insight that reframes the whole company. Because here's the thing about reinforcement learning, which is how you teach a model to actually get good at a task, rather than just predict text. RL works by having the model attempt something over and over and scoring it. And every one of those attempts is independent. Their own words. Reinforcement learning is inherently more asynchronous and well suited for globally distributed compute. So in spring 2025, they go do it. Intellect 2, 32 billion parameters. And they describe the contributions as permissionless, anybody's machine. And to make that work with strangers, you need three pieces. One, broadcast the newest version of the model out to everybody, like seeding a torrent. One collects the attempts and does the actual learning. And the third is the clever one, top lock, which is how they check that a stranger's GPU really did the work it claimed. It takes a fingerprint of the model's internal state as it generates, and the receipt is 258 bytes for every 32 words. Checking it runs up to 100 times faster than redoing the work. And to be precise, because this gets muddled a lot, that is not a zero-knowledge proof. It's a cheap fingerprint you recheck, and they're upfront that it can't catch everything. And underneath all of it, the protocol repo tells you straight. Ethereum-based smart contracts run the economic layer. Validators throw random challenges at workers, and workers ran on testnet ETH. Their own honest read afterward, though. The gains were hard to generalize much past the training data. So now we get to November 2025, and Intellect 3, their best model by a distance. 106 billion parameters, mixture of experts, built on top of GLM 4.5 Air, put through supervised fine-tuning, and then large-scale reinforcement learning over about 2 months. And if you read the technical report, it says they orchestrated 512 NVIDIA H200 GPUs across 64 interconnected nodes, one cluster, centralized. So the company that made its name proving you don't need a big centralized cluster built its flagship model on one, and then published that fact themselves in plain text where anyone could find it. And look, most coverage either misses this or treats it like a gotcha, and both of those are wrong. This is the finding. Distribution earns its keep when the work is independent. Generating attempts, making synthetic data, running inference, running evaluations. It does not earn its keep on the tight inner loop, where every chip needs every other chip's answer right now. Their line is that async training is simply the only practical way to scale RL to long horizon agentic work. That's not a retreat from distribution. That's distribution aimed at where it actually wins, and the results back the judgment. Against the base model it started from, it goes from about 85 to 91 on the AIM math set. Though here's the honest footnote, right there in their own chart. The bigger sibling model, full GLM 4.5, still beats it on a couple of the tests. They published that too. They didn't crop the chart. So if the GPUs weren't the bottleneck, what was? And this is where they got ahead of almost everybody. Think about what reinforcement learning actually needs. It needs somewhere for the model to practice, a task, a way to attempt it, and a scorer that says yes or no. And if you want an agent that can fix real software bugs, you need thousands of real broken repositories with real tests. That's not a chip problem. That's a curriculum problem. So in August 2025, they opened the Environments Hub, and the pitch is a community hub to scale RL toward OpenAI. Anybody can build a practice environment, push it up, and anybody else can train against it. And then this July, they published the number that made me sit up. 365,000 tasks, roughly 198,000 software engineering problems across more than 20 programming languages, plus tens of thousands more for working in a terminal and doing deep research. 23 separate collections, all behind one interface, and about 135,000 come as pre-built, ready-to-run images, which they reckon is the largest catalog any sandbox provider hosts. And the honesty here is what sells it for me. They published a whole piece on reward hacking, on models learning to game the scorer instead of doing the job, and the line is beautiful. A reward signal can lie in two directions, so it can reward cheating, and it can also fail to reward something that genuinely worked. They're documenting how their own product misleads people. Meanwhile, the rest fills in around it. Hosted training, hosted evaluations, secure sandboxes, and a compute layer now spanning more than 50 providers. So let's talk about what that turned into, because the money tells the story better than I can. February 2025, they raised 15 million led by Founders Fund, and the angels are people who actually build this stuff. Andre Karpathy, Tree Dow, Clem DeLang from Hugging Face. Then, on the 8th of July this year, $130 million led by Radical Ventures at a $1 billion valuation. And look who follows on, because it's not the usual crowd. NVIDIA Ventures, Intel Capital, and Dell Technologies Capital. The chip and hardware world putting money into the company, arguing you shouldn't need to own a giant cluster. Angels include John Schulman, one of the people behind reinforcement learning from human feedback, and Matthew Prince from Cloudflare. Over 150 million raised in total. And here's what actually justifies it. 6,000 customers and more than $100 million in annualized revenue. And I want to be careful with that word, annualized. It means the current run rate, not cash already collected. Real names on the wall too. Ramp, Zapier, Character.ai, Browserbase. Their framing is that pre-training concentrated frontier AI in a handful of labs. And RL breaks that open, because now a company can own its own improvement loop. NVIDIA's in there technically as well, not just financially. So, the token question, because this is a crypto channel and you deserve a straight answer. There isn't one. No Prime Intellect token. It's equity funded. Crypto funds seeded it. Ethereum runs settlement plumbing in the protocol layer. And that's the extent of it. So if you ever see something claiming to be a Prime Intellect coin, treat it as unverified because they have never announced one. So where does that leave us? I think the reason this story matters has almost nothing to do with AI specifically. Two people asked a question in 2023, spent real money and 2 years answering it honestly, and the answer came back, partly, no. And instead of burying that, they published it and rebuilt around it. And the thing they found on the way, that the scarce resource was practice environments and trustworthy verification, not silicon, is what 6,000 companies now pay them for. If you want to go poke at this yourself, all of it free, read the Intellect 3 technical report on their blog, because it's the rare one that shows you the unflattering columns too. Go look at the Environments Hub and see what strangers are building for models to practice on. And their coding agent and environments library are both open on GitHub under MIT and Apache licenses. The takeaway I'd hold on to? When a field's bottleneck moves, the winners are whoever noticed first. Prime Intellect noticed it moved from chips to classrooms. All right, that's Prime Intellect. If you got something out of this, a like genuinely helps this channel reach people who'd like it too. And subscribing means you catch the next one. Drop a comment and tell me what you want broken down next. I do read them. And a lot of these videos start as somebody's question. And come hang out in the Discord. It's in the description along with the newsletter sign up. I'll see you in the next one.